And once again, I'd like to welcome everybody back to the Buffalo History Channel for more historical content on the city of Buffalo. Thanks so much for joining me. My name is Doug Ruffin, the content curator of the Buffalo History Channel. I have the pleasure to be joined by a gentleman that I met on Facebook and a couple of the Facebook historical groups, particularly Michelle Ragland's historical group, Mr. Joseph Clore, and he's here to talk to us about his family's role in owning a very prominent hotel back in the day called the Hotel Vendome. So I'd like to welcome Joseph Clore to the Buffalo History Channel.
Thanks, Doug. Let me start off first by applauding you for the great work you're doing in bringing out Buffalo's great history. And Let me give a shout out to Michelle Ragland, who I've never met, but we are in constant contact on Facebook. And she's also a great Black Buffalo historian. So
absolutely, with
people like you and Michelle, Black Buffalo's history will live on, I hope.
Yeah, definitely got to give a shout out to Michelle Ragland, because I tell you, she keeps me on point with the stuff that she finds.
We're like close friends, you know.
She is an amazing Buffalo historian.
Yes, she is.
Amazing Buffalo historian. So talk to us about, he's here, you're here to share your thoughts and memories on the Hotel Vendome, whatever you can share. What are some of your earliest memories of the Vendome? Do you know how it came about?
Well, I can give a brief history of my grandfather and his brothers, the Clore brothers.
Mm-hmm.
They all were born in Virginia, I believe Culpeper, Virginia. And of course, like many Black folks in those days, they traveled north to, for better lives. They came to Buffalo and they opened the Vendome Hotel. In those days, it was on Clinton Street. And that's when Clinton was, lively. Full of businesses, Clinton, William, Broadway, it was just totally different from today. The three brothers were my grandfather, Joseph, or really John Joseph Clore.
Mm-hmm.
His author was George Clore and Billy Clore. I believe there was a sister, Edith Clore, while my memory is coming back. Now, I knew all those relatives. My earliest memory of the Vendome, I was probably 6 or 7 when I'm dating myself. That would be 1956 or 1957, when I would go there as a little boy and run around. I knew the history from my dad, how at one time the Vendome had a chorus line of dancers. They would broadcast their show from coast to coast. And many of the Black celebrities and artists stayed at the Vendome when they came to Buffalo. One I remember, in fact, was I was maybe 5 or 6, and I met the great boxing champion, Joe Louis. Yes. He happened to be there. So I've heard from my relatives, and what I've read on my own, the Vendome was quite something in its day, but I didn't know it, or I didn't go there until the 50s. And by that time, it had lost some of its glamour.
And also, we stumbled across something. I think I sent a message to you early on when I had contacted you. This was very interesting, that there was another. You said it was on Clinton Street, but this one said it was on a Court. May have had its beginning on Court Street or something like that.
I remember you sent me that. I don't remember. I remember, as far as I know, it was just on Clinton Street.
Right. And
then in the 70s, my grandfather moved into the corner of Sycamore and Adams.
I see.
But now, in my research, there was a Vendome garage at one time. So I wonder if that's, but it was not owned by my family. I wonder if that's what you saw, because again, the only locations I know of are Clinton Street and the last one, Clinton and Adams.
Yeah. So, and looking back at some of these are just pieces of just goes to show these are pieces of really forgotten and little known history, particularly when you're dealing it's like when you go beyond Jefferson Avenue, and you go into like Michigan and that area, you hear the names of places, and but then sometimes to find the information can be a little challenging.
Yeah. It's funny. My dad, um, rest in peace, his real dream was to be a jazz musician, and he played alto sax in
Right.
various local bands. And I remember hearing about all the clubs in those days. There was the Moon Glow, there
Wow.
was the Zanzibar, of course, there was a Pine Grill and the Bonton. There was a club called Mandy's,
Mm,
and they've all gone. I was too young to frequent these places, but that was all
right.
part of Buffalo's entertainment. Um, and then to leave the subject of the Vendome a bit, as I mentioned, that's when Jefferson Avenue, William, Clinton were just vibrant with businesses. Jefferson Avenue was a place to be. There were
Yeah.
at least 3 or 4 men's clothing stores on Jefferson
Yeah.
Avenue. There
Yep.
were numerous supermarkets. There was a travel agent on Jefferson Avenue. On the corner, I think it was Woodlawn and Jefferson, there was a paint and wallpaper shop. I remember it because they sold Howdy Doody wallpaper. And I was a little kid. I thought that was great. Howdy
Yeah.
Doody wallpaper.
Yeah.
So I guess the Vendome and all these other places just part of Black Buffalo's glorious history. It was great at one time. In fact, here's one thing.
Mhm.
People in those days, 40s, 50s, and 60s, folks from Toronto would come to Buffalo for
Yeah.
entertainment.
Yeah.
Now,
Buffalo.
that's hard to believe in 2023.
Yeah, Buffalo was a
But
premier spot way back
yeah,
when for
yeah,
many of your legends that were getting their start came through and tested out their audiences right here in the city of Buffalo.
yeah, yeah. I remember we used to, this may be embarrassing, but some friends of mine and I, we would go into the Pine Grill. We were like 17 and 18.
Hmm.
And I forgot the brother who was a doorman, was it? Oh, someone can come up with his name later on, but we pester him and he would let us in. We were above age. At that time, we were all 18.
Yeah,
But we would go in there and be starry-eyed seeing Ohio players. There was a singer called Tommy Hunt. I remember seeing
yeah,
Jack McDuff and Jimmy McGriff there. Um, you know, it actually saddens me to think about those days now they don't exist anymore.
yeah. So what are your thoughts on just the impact in essence? We look of some of these major places, particularly around in that which is more fascinatingly speaking, in that Michigan Avenue area with the Hotel Vendome, along with the
Yeah,
Colored Musicians Club, which still
yeah.
stands, the Moon Glow, and all these other places.
It's funny, and um, I think you called it. Did you call it the Colored Musicians Club? Because in those days, it was called the Colored Musicians Local. And my
Okay,
dad was telling me that black musicians were not allowed in the white musicians locals.
right,
So black musicians formed their own local, and then it was called the Colored Musicians Local. In later years, it became the Colored Musicians Club. And let me say, I'm a little taken aback to see the pictures of, not that it's a bad thing, but seeing all the white musicians and white spectators, because in those days, when my dad would take me there to watch him practice, all of the musicians were black,
right,
and the vast majority of the patrons were black.
right.
So, and it was another safe haven that black folks could go to, enjoy good music, and and have fun with their friends.
So it's definitely a rich history,
It
particularly
is.
in
It is.
Buffalo's entertainment scene. But I'd like to thank you for being a part of the Buffalo History Channel today.
My pleasure.
All right, and of course we got the Bills game coming up later on.
I was
So
gonna say go Bills.
absolutely, go
I'm down in New
Bills!
Jersey, but I'm still a major Bills supporter.
All right, man. We wish them luck as well.